Hi guys, welcome back to another Relab Live. I wanted to do a tactical video this time to give you some value around the idea of presenting a case study. But specifically, I'm trying to hit two birds in one stone here, but specifically a design sprint case study. Now, you can get into the nitty-gritty details on how to present it or what to show or like explaining the process and all of that. But this is a case where you just wanted to quickly run through what the design sprint is and what sort of value it could bring to companies and organizations and teams very, very quickly without having to bore people down. So the best way to do this, I figured, is to take you through a case study on a design sprint case that we've done ourselves here at Relab. I'm just going to go into our website, so one of the examples are here. So the case studies or the work that we present in our website are very high level. We're trying to be a little bit more visual while at the same time giving just the necessary information around the process in general. So I'll take you through how we tried to do it here at Relab, and hopefully it's helpful to you, okay? So let's go to our website. So here we are, relab.com.au. I'm just going to go into the case studies, and I'll just pick one of our design sprint cases. Let's say it's this one, which is the IELTS English language testing system. If you are an international student and you have tried applying for visas or tried applying for universities here in Australia or the UK or the US in some cases, IELTS is used a lot and you would be familiar with it. So this case was for the IELTS Essentials website, which is one of their websites by IDP Education, and I'll walk you through this, okay? So one of the things that are important to mention is obviously what the project is. So in our case, it's IDP Education IELTS. And I always like putting in a title on the project itself that it makes sense what the whole thing was in summary. So in this case, we put in Design Sprint for Innovation in the International English Language Testing System, which is IELTS. The services that we did was the Google Ventures Design Sprint, project management, user research, creative strategy, UI UX design, because as part of the design sprint we did prototyping, user testing and stuff like that, which kind of is a component of user research, UX design, etc. Okay, some pictures of the persona. Now, when I'm saying that we try to lead with visuals, we also try to give just enough information of the process. So for those readers out there or for stakeholders who are interested to find out more about Relab or the works that Relab has done, hopefully these couple paragraphs down here will help them understand the process, again, at a very high level. We're not trying to get into too much details because we can go through that for hours. But for now, what's important is to understand how did the design sprint process that we did for IELTS brought value to the IELTS team in general. So I'm just going to quickly read this out, and I'll try to zoom in as well, just for the screen. But essentially what we're saying here is, following a brand positioning analysis and research exercise, IELTS identified some key challenges around maintaining customer trust and the perception around its brand due to rising competition in the English language test system. So we're trying to acknowledge the problems that they have identified themselves as a company. Now, the luxury of working with larger organizations is they have research capabilities and they have invested time in trying to understand positioning, marketing, strategy, etc., or brand strategy, that we have those type of information. In IELTS case, we did have those information because they have engaged other agencies before to try and understand what their problems were. So we were presented with their problem first, that it gives us time to think about what the solution should be. Okay, so I'm going to go to this paragraph here. Upon initial consultation, bear with me here guys, but this is quite important information on you trying to understand the case study itself. So upon initial consultation, we as Relab identified that the project challenge was pretty complex due to various stakeholders who are involved. So that's already a quick sign for us to understand what type of process we should go through with this. And it was a risky investment as well, because if they were to move forward with this project into development, execution, launching it, testing it, etc., it will be a long-term type of project, and it will involve a lot of investment in terms of budgeting as well, most importantly. So, but at the same time, there were some uncertainties and questions around what offering did the market really need. Time was another challenge as well, because there's not a lot of time, which is very typical in the projects that we are usually involved in. So time is always the essence of what we're doing, and therefore the accuracy of the solution becomes very important, and the urgency was really critical too. Okay. So up to that point, what we have done is trying to summarize the problem, being able to identify what the problem is, and then this next paragraph here is the solution that we came up with in summary. So after clarifying business needs, the Relab strategy team advocated for a 2-week design sprint process that allowed us to rapidly come up with high-fidelity prototypes in such a short period of time. So that's essentially the value proposition of the design sprint. We didn't explain further what the design sprint is, but we did have a link here that allows people to read more about the design sprint, which we have in a separate page. So this is a much more thorough page about what the design sprint is, what the benefits are, who is it best suited for, what's in the agenda, what's in the 5-day agenda if it was a 5-day process, the design sprint outcomes, etc., etc. So for those who wanted to learn more, whether you're a marketer, a stakeholder, a business owner, or whoever it is that is interested in Relab services, then that's another page that we would offer them from here. And then we just summarized what the 2-week was. Week 1 was about understanding the problems. Week 2 was dedicated to solutions, prototyping, and testing it on real users. I'm trying to be very concise in the explanation here. Throughout the intensive process, both Relab and IELTS team members from IDP Education worked collaboratively while involving senior stakeholders of the organization to validate decisions and solutions. At the end of the 2 weeks time, the IELTS team saw alignment, confidence around ideas worth executing based on the user interview feedback. The high-fidelity prototype and design working files also became a high-value asset for the technical development and engineering team, who weren't Relab, by the way, and say they have their own engineering team overseas that works on the project for a longer term, but it allowed them, because of the handover process and the files and prototypes that we worked on, it allowed them to accurately estimate for their own efforts, their own technical efforts, massively minimizing overall project risks. Because without that design sprint process that we would have done, or without that validation process that we would have done, then the risk is higher from a technical perspective, from an engineering perspective, because they're dealing with a bit more, not a bit more, a whole lot of unknowns that they would otherwise be dealing with if the design sprint process wasn't done. Okay? And so the IELTS Essential websites was launched successfully. So this is a case study where it has actually been really successful, because the whole product was launched. There are some cases where the design sprint process didn't see the light of day in terms of the execution side of things, which is fine, and it's completely normal as well, because essentially the design sprint is for a discovery process. It's more of a validation discovery process. If anything, if you end up not launching your product because of the design sprint and the user testing process that's involved as part of it, then it's still a learning curve, and it's still a learning process that is valuable for the company or the team. But in IELTS's case, in this case that I'm presenting, it actually went live, and it quickly saw great results, particularly around the booking conversions and user engagement, where it became the website became a touch point of the user journey. And so another important thing I think to present as part of your short presentation is to come up with numbers, some real data that you could share, some real benefits that you could share that was actually real. So in our case, we presented some numbers here. Within the first month of launch, some high-level success metrics were met from the business point of view, including booking conversion rate up by 48%, IELTS test booking metrics up by 30%, roughly equating to $140,000 Australian, website bounce rate down by 7.5%, average user engagement session duration up by 14%. So those are really, really great numbers just in the first month of launch. And so when I present things like this, oftentimes it drives trust, it drives confidence in engaging us, but most importantly, what people like to see is visual things, right? And oftentimes people would probably skip the text and they would like to see, okay, like visually, what does it look like? Unfortunately, the design sprint isn't so fancy when it comes to visuals, but that's where we come in as Relab, the agency capability, because we are UI UX design experts, and we saw the value of working with us in a design sprint process, or having us facilitate a design sprint process, is we're really good in prototyping, right? And so I'll just show you some of the prototype examples. This is an actual prototype that was done throughout the design sprint process, and I think in our process that we advocated for, in that 2-week process, we spent 2.5 days prototyping, and the results that came up was pretty, I'd say pretty good in terms of accuracy and high fidelity prototype type level. We wanted to emphasize some of the key functions or features that we noted down on as part of the process. So for example, transparent and accessible support materials. User-focused journey mapping provides holistic visibility of interfaces that are essential in offering IELTS products and services. Some visuals, like the moving images and some of the animations like this, is always very helpful. It gives us it gives users, viewers, an idea of interaction, and so we've done it this way and presented it this way. Mobile version versus desktop version is always very helpful. Presentation of IELTS practice products that are accessible and easy to digest. Some iconography, some imagery of the user interviews or the user testing session. Objective and measurable user feedback, a call to action to the design sprint itself. Again, because we're assuming that most people won't really understand what the design sprint is, we try to give them links to finding out more about it where possible. So again, just a summary on the design sprint at Relab: a rapid 5-day process of structured problem solving, creating solutions, new products, features, etc., etc. Okay. Another important thing is a real testimonial from the client itself. So in this case, we had Jack, who was the digital marketing manager in this project and was the product owner, and he was also the decider as part of the sprint process. So he said, within a very short period of time, Relab's expertise in leading us through their design sprint process, quick understanding of our business goals, as well as their creative talent, provided us with a design solution that we're very confident to take into the market. So that itself kind of summarizes the value of design sprint from their point of view as a client, as a business, as a group of people who wanted to launch a new product. So that was mainly it, and then I've provided more case study examples that has something to do with this process. So another one is the Australian Reinforcing Company, another one is from Reese, and that's all design sprint. So as viewers, in a very short period of time, I'm not sure how long is this so far, roughly? About a minute, 2 minutes? No, 7? 14 minutes. So within 15 minutes time, I've managed to try and explain what the design sprint is through an actual case study. And usually, from my experience, that helps clients, stakeholders, other teams understand it a lot better without having to spend too much time just yet. And just to quickly see whether it brings value to their teams and their projects or not. And if they're interested to find out more, obviously they can read more and do more research about it. There's a whole bunch of resources out there right now about the design sprint, and as a matter of fact, it's a process that has become more and more popular just because of the value that it brings to the right case, to the right cases. All right. And that's essentially it. The other thing that I think is important to show, and I think we haven't actually showed, you know, the right amount of process photos in this page right here, but I wanted to share with you some of it of the same case study. So this is for that IELTS project. I always like taking through stakeholders, you know, some photo examples of the process itself. It feels a lot more real. It allows me to explain what the user journey is, what does a goal look like, what does questions look like, and you know, the processes of, this is a lightning demo process, some crazy eights, you know, just in general some visuals of the process and what the days looked like. And then from a stakeholder's point of view, when they see things like this, then they'll go, okay, that looks pretty productive, and it is actually very, very intense and productive, but it feels real, and they kind of know what they're getting and where this leads to, and then that kind of helps them to make decisions on whether, you know, it brings value for them or not. Is this something they'd like to try and invest on? And if they're interested in, and obviously they'll find out more about it. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful. If you have any questions whatsoever about, you know, presenting a case study or design sprints in general, or even just presenting digital design, UX design work, or design thinking type of work, feel free to drop a comment or reach out to me. My email is alvin@relab.com.au, and otherwise, hopefully you have a productive day. Cheers.